I lost my animation software, so my PC broke 2 days ago and I had to buy a new one, so I've lost my animation software that was totally legally downloaded. I decided that I would review the free animation tools so that you guys and I can find the best possible solution to this problem, because animation, I feel like it should be accessible for everyone. Let's talk Fire Alpaca. So first off, I like that there's onion skin, that's always great for an animation software. And adding on to the pros is also the preview screen, which is actually one of the better ones I've seen. It's fairly easy to work through and, understand all the tools, so I'm going to give it a plus for that. And honestly, I did really enjoy working with Fire Alpaca, especially when I was animating. But, things don't exist without fault, and Fire Alpaca follows this rule. Now, if you're someone who gets confused by mass layers like me, then it might be a bit of a hassle for you to work with Fire Alpaca. Each folder is a frame, and each layer inside that frame is a layer. So if you have separate layers for backgrounds, outline, shading, coloring, it can get really freaking confusing really fast. Another issue I had because of the layout is that it was really annoying to flick through different frames, but I think this is something you could easily overlook for, a pretty high quality free software. Overall, I think Fire Alpaca is one of the better options for a free program. It works really well, and you can change the FPS in the program itself, and there are different exporting options, which is really nice. I'd have to rate it an 8 out of 10 for free programs. Next up is Pencil 2D. So what do I like? Well, the layers are pretty simple. You've got both bitmap and vector layers to work with, which is pretty cool. You've got quite a few tools to experiment with, and the playback timeline is pretty smooth and accurate to your work. I also like that you're able to export your work in different ways, which is pretty interesting and nice of them to include, obviously. The sketch tool, in my opinion, is probably the better tool for line art, which is kind of sucky, but, it's all about personal preference, but for me it worked out. And I think it could be a really good software if you're working on, more storyboard or animatic-based work. But for full-on animations, I feel like it's a bit difficult to work with because the layers are just so clunky feeling and just kind of awkward. And onto the problems, the fill tool, like a lot of programs I use, was annoying to figure out at first, especially balancing the color tolerance, which was so frustrating when all I wanted to do was, do simple colors and fill in a little area. Another thing that was pretty frustrating was that I couldn't figure out how to change the keyframe colors at first, which, maybe I'm just stupid. I eventually did get it. Maybe I'm just dumb. But, if you watch a tutorial first, I think the program would be a lot more better and more fun to use. The UI is a little more complicated than Fire Alpaca, and it's got a lot less brush options than some of the other programs in this list. But, overall, it's an alright program, and it's pretty good for, short animations or, animatics. Anyway, here's the finished product shown on Discord, and let's just move on to the next program. FlipperClip is a state-of-the-art program which unfortunately is only for mobile devices like your phone or iPad, so recording it was kind of impossible because my iPad is, interesting. Now, I'm pretty well versed in FlipperClip, so I'm going to tell you about some of its features. I've been using it for quite a while now, because, I like animation and I like drawing, so yeah, let's just talk about it. On a positive note, it's got a lot of brush options, and you can create custom color palettes, which is really cool. It's got an option to change the speed of the animation, it has different layers, you can change the layer opacity, which Pencil 2D doesn't have. It has the option to add sound, you can add videos or images from your device into the software, and the select tool actually rotates unlike Pencil 2D. Another thing I like about FlipperClip is how easy the UI is and how uncomplicated changing the brushes is. And unfortunately, a lot of FlipperClip is nowadays overrun by adverts, and unless you have Pro, it can get really annoying to use, which is what I've seen in a lot of complaints and reviews. I personally bought Pro years ago, back when it was a lifetime subscription for $10, so I don't actually know how good the pricing is, if it's any good at all. But based on the FlipperClip that I own and have at hand on my iPad, I'd say it's a pretty solid app for animation, and it's one of the more professional yet cheaper options compared to Adobe Animate or After Effects, etc., etc. And I feel like I can't talk animation without talking about MS Paint and Windows Movie Maker combined, which is what I used to animate with when I was younger and, first starting out on YouTube, but that's a story for another video. Unlike the other softwares, MS Paint isn't actually an animation software, but it can be used as one if you, like spending your time meticulously saving each frame and movement in your image and inserting it into Windows Movie Maker, or literally any other editing software, and changing the frames of the image and exporting it all together. I mean, surely no one actually animated like that, right? Alright, so the pros. I love how paint drawings look. I think the tools are really cool and they just give me nostalgic and retro vibes, which is partially why I like it so much. You can add a few colours into a custom colour palette, there's different brushes and tools, and you can have more change in how the frames are timed because you are manually editing them in. And the cons, okay, well, there's no animation preview, which is, you know, a big thing for animation softwares. Which means you have to save and render as you go. There's no layers, which is annoying as hell, and almost impossible to work with bigger animations, especially if you're trying to do backgrounds and colouring at the same time. It's got no onion skin, which it's not an animation software, so that makes sense. The colour palette options are limited, as well as the brush options, and you know, it's just not an animation software, so maybe you shouldn't use it as one, but I'm going to do it for this video anyways. So this is the animation I made. I've included it here. It's very awesome. Honestly, I didn't colour it as much because yeah, as you can imagine, it was annoying to work with. But yeah, I didn't use Windows Movie Maker this time because it's like a dead program. I used CapCut, which is what I'm using to edit. And yeah, overall, it was like a boring process. I'm not gonna lie to you. So you know. In terms of practicality and which I would rather use for animation, I'd definitely have to say Fire Alpaca or Flipperclip, since you can be a lot more expressive in terms of brushes and colours. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preferences and, you know, what you enjoy and how you like to work. Overall, I loved using all the different softwares and seeing how I had to change how I worked for each program, you know, being limited with the different, like, softwares and the tools. But what do you guys think? You know, are there any softwares that you guys prefer? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!